The so-called tilt coaster is going to be an unreliable maintenance nightmare of a roller coaster. Well, it really looks like many of these next generation Vekoma coasters are finally coming to the US. And two of these Vekoma products are the so-called tilt coaster model. And Six Flags Qiddiya in Saudi Arabia is also preparing their tilt coaster. So in this video I'll be answering many questions such as, what is all the hype about this tilt coaster model? Why have we only seen one tilt coaster model installation in 23 years? And finally, is this roller coaster model going to be a maintenance nightmare? Well, let's go all the way back to 2002 where the tilt coaster prototype was actually installed. And this is where we need to travel all the way over to Discovery World in Taiwan where we have the so-called Gravity Max coaster. And since 2002, Gravity Max has been the one and only tilt roller coaster in the whole world. And this roller coaster features a maximum height of 114 feet. The maximum speed is 56 miles per hour and this roller coaster only have one inversion. This roller coaster is overall quite simple because the length of the track is only 1,863 feet. Gravity Max of course features this iconic tilt track with a 90-degree vertical drop, and after going through the tunnel you have an 88 feet tall loop, and after that you just have a helix, and then the ride experience is pretty much done. And overall Gravity Max just features a very short and simple roller coaster layout. Then I asked myself, why has there only been one installation of this tilt coaster model since 2002? This Gravity Max coaster must be very unreliable or problematic in some way, and if that's the case, I think these next generation tilt coasters will be very problematic. So now let's dive into the details and see if Gravity Max is actually a maintenance nightmare, because this very special tilt coaster track element looks very technical, and every roller coaster enthusiast know if a roller coaster is very ambitious and it features many special track elements, this roller coaster is going to be a bit more unreliable compared to other simple coasters, and the cost of maintenance is going to be way higher. So now let's see what Gravity Max has to offer. And in all 23 years this roller coaster has been operating at Discovery World, Gravity Max has not been unreliable. So now the reason for only one installation since 2002 is probably the competition all around. And after Gravity Max there wasn't really any further demand for the product for some reason, and so Vekoma simply shelved this roller coaster model and focused on other stuff. And the Vekoma tilt coaster was and will still be a heavily sophisticated mechanism made for show only, because this roller coaster really looks crazy. It's probably way easier to create a roller coaster without the tilt track. And you really need to mention that Vekoma had a huge competitor, and that was B&M, because they created the so-called dive roller coaster all the way back in 1998. And I really think the B&M dive coaster model is probably why we haven't seen any more tilt coasters since 2002. And we all know these B&M dive coasters are very simple and they look very scary. And even though these huge vertical and beyond vertical drop dive coasters features a holding brake, they are nowhere near as technical as a tilt roller coaster. And it's very clear that this dive roller coaster model is very popular because B&M has created a total of 17 of them, and that would also be 18 in 2025. And even though the tilt coaster looks way more scary, I still think the B&M dive coaster really adds a lot of variety, because these roller coasters can really be quite big and they can also be quite small. And I also think that the 300 feet dive coaster at Six Flags over Texas will actually be a reality now. And I don't really think a tilt coaster can be 300 feet tall. And on top of that, if you want a budget roller coaster with a scary first drop, you'll just call Gerstlauer for the Eurofighter coaster model. These Gerstlauer Eurofighters features the iconic vertical lift with a beyond vertical drop and a compact and very punchy layout. And you could probably buy a whole Gerstlauer Eurofighter roller coaster track for the cost of just a tilt coaster element. So now the only reason for one tilt coaster installation since 2002 is probably the competition. B&M can make these huge dive roller coaster drops and Gerstlauer can make the small budget versions. The tilt roller coaster track just looks way cooler and way scarier. But now suddenly we're going to see 3 total tilt coaster installations in 2025, and why is that? Well, apart from the Disney roller coasters, I just think Vekoma in the start 2010s and mid 2010s were known for creating these very old looping roller coasters. Popular SLC and boomerang coaster models were beginning to be quite outdated, and the age of positive G-force heavy roller coasters were beginning to go away. But then in 2016, Vekoma officially made their new comeback roller coaster with a completely new design. And since 2016 we have seen many new installations in Europe of the so-called Vekoma Next Gen roller coaster. And all of their coasters offer a very smooth roller coaster layout combining inversions, launches and airtime moments. Now because of the huge success of the new gen Vekomas, I think America wants to try again. And since 2002, I probably think that Vekoma has improved this tilt coaster design. And after these 3 creations of this tilt coaster, I don't really think we'll see more because this is a very small market. So now let's quickly dive into this very technical tilt coaster element. So now the main question is probably, if the roller coaster brakes fail on this tilt coaster element, will the train then just fly down and kill people? Well, not really, just listen here. At the heart of the tilt coaster lies its most innovative component, the tilt track itself. This section of track is fully dynamic, capable of locking in place, tilting at a controlled rate, and releasing the train with absolute precision. So how does this work? Before the train even reaches the tilt section, a powerful pneumatic and hydraulic locking pins engage, securing the moving track into alignment with the rest of the coaster. And this overall prevents the slightest movement before the tilting sequence begins. And once the train arrives and is locked onto the track, hydraulic pistons or heavy-duty electric motors begin their work. The entire track section is mounted on a reinforced point which rotates forward under controlled force. And then the system modulates the tilt speed to avoid unwanted forces on riders. And when the tilt reaches a near vertical position, the lower track aligns perfectly with the drop section below. At this moment, the locking mechanism disengages, allowing gravity to take over, and then the train is released, accelerating into the next phase of the ride. And then the gravity of course takes over and the roller coaster goes through the whole ride layout. So now let's just say, if all these systems fail, what will then happen? First of all, the roller coaster train will never fail and fall off this tilt track. There are overall 4 different fail-safe systems on this tilt coaster track. The track section has multiple hydraulic and mechanical locks. If one fails, the other ones hold everything in place. Sensors continuously monitor the lock engagement and prevent the train from entering the tilt section if an issue is detected. So if there is a fail, the roller coaster then just completely stops. And this tilting motion is usually controlled by hydraulics or servo motors, but what if the power is lost? The tilt coaster element include a backup battery or generator system, ensuring the tilt track can still return to a safe position even though these hydraulic motors will fail. And if the tilt track somehow failed to align properly, high friction magnetic brakes would stop the train immediately before it could drop. And these brakes are passive systems, meaning they don't need power to function. They rely on magnets and they usually activate in case of malfunction. And then this tilt coaster is also equipped with dozens of sensors monitoring tilt angles, speed, lock status, and passenger restraints. And this is of course something every roller coaster uses. And if any of these small sensors detect something is wrong, this roller coaster just stops operation immediately until operators can verify the safety. And sometimes these sensors can detect something wrong even though there isn't really anything wrong. And even though just one sensor can detect something wrong, even though there isn't really anything wrong, the whole roller coaster then stops. And if you have visited an amusement park in the recent years, you have probably seen some of these roller coasters just stopping. And that doesn't really mean these roller coasters are dangerous to ride, they just stop for a safety reason. And then the whole system gets reset and then the roller coaster is back to operation again. So overall you can really see that there are many factors for stopping this roller coaster train falling off the tilt coaster track. And in the near future it would be very exciting to see how reliable these tilt coasters are. All of these new for 2025 tilt coasters really have a very ambitious thrill coaster design with many inversions and airtime hills. It is very clear to see that Vekoma has really improved this roller coaster design. And at Vekoma's headquarters they actually have a tilt coaster element where they of course test this train and all the safety. And that's why you will never as a rider fall off this tilt coaster track. And now we finally come to an end of this video. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Please let me know in the comments below. And if you really love theme park and roller coaster videos, please consider subscribing to the channel. And now at the end of the day, I'm always gonna say bye bye.